Greetings, listeners. My name is Joanna Barbola, and you're listening to Divulge Divino, Inspire, Innovate, Indulge, Art, Wine, and Entrepreneurial Triumph. In a vibrant and dynamic world where creativity meets entrepreneurship, I invite all of my listeners to explore with me the intersection of art, wine, and personal triumphs. As the host of Divulge Divino, Inspire, Innovate, Indulge, I will aim to create a platform for fellow entrepreneurs to share their stories and celebrate their journeys to success. My self published book, also titled Divulge Divino, serves as a guide through a rich sensory experience, blending the enjoyment of exquisite wines, unveiling the passions and innovations that drive the entrepreneurship spirit while indulging in the beauty of unique flavors and artistic expression. Tune in for engaging conversation, inspiring stories, and a delightful celebration of creativity and success. Now, for the exciting part of today's episode, our guest will be the lovely Laurel Simmons. Laurel Simmons is an entrepreneur, a wine expert, and podcast host of Wine Behind the Scenes. Wine Behind the Scenes was born out of a desire to share what Laurel has discovered and continues to explore and uncover. Rather ironically, this takes Laurel back to traveling, but this time with wine as her driving force. Tasting new wines and sampling food, along with the opportunities to attend conferences and occasionally be invited to judge at international wine competitions, is Laurel's life right now. Welcome, Laurel. It's so nice to have you on my show. It's great to see you.
Hi, Joanna. It's nice to be here. Thank you.
Yes, it's lovely. I was a guest on Laurel's podcast, Wine Behind the Scenes, the beginning of this year. So I'm so happy to have her back on my show. So she can tell us all about what's going on with her and her wine behind the scenes. So tell us how you got started. I know you have some serious certifications. You have a lot of education in your wine journey, and I'd love to hear all about it.
Well, I'm fortunate at this stage of my life. For many, many years, decades, in fact, I worked in the world of high tech. I was a technical writer, and I was worked in content management. And I had companies, I had business partners, and I had employees, and I was a self-employed and a contractor, and I did it all.
Hmm.
And at a certain point in time, that it's not that there's nothing, not there wasn't anything new to learn. It's just you get tired of it, right? You just do doing the same thing over and over and over. And
Yeah.
one day I woke up and I said to my husband, you know what? I don't want to get to the end of my life and say, I wish I had. I think there's nothing worse than being in your deathbed and having regrets. And one of the things that I got really interested in along the way was wine. As I was traveling and I joined wine clubs in the city of Ottawa,
Hmm.
Canada's national capital, which is where I lived for many years.
Hmm.
And I started learning about wine, and I thought, I want to do more than that. I want to learn about how to make wine, not just taste wine, but make wine, because you can, of course, just do the sensory journey, which is all about tasting and experiencing and learning wine that way. But I really, really wanted to understand wine from a technical aspect. So I applied to a college in Niagara-on-the-Lake, which is where I live now, which is in southern Ontario between two Great Lakes, Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. And I was accepted into the program, and that's where I learned how to make wine. How to analyze wine in the chemistry lab, how to look after the vineyards, how to prune the vines, uh, how to manage the soil. I mean, there's so much about wine from a technical aspect that you don't really think of when you're actually opening that bottle and tasting. And frankly, why should you? Bottled wine is to enjoy, right? To to
Exactly.
to taste and
Yeah.
to
To
experience it.
indulge, absolutely. Share with friends. Wine brings people together. Yeah, absolutely.
So that
Absolutely.
was it. And so I had been a podcast host of another podcast, and all of a sudden I sat up one day and I thought, wait a minute, I know how to do this. And I love to talk about wine. I love to educate wine. I mean, I did a full year of the program, and then I went over to Italy and studied for my WSET 3, which a lot of people know about it, the Wine and Spirit Education Trust. It's a well recognized credential and school in throughout the wine world. And I
Mhm.
thought, well, if I have these credentials and I enjoy it, why not share what I know about wine in a podcast? But again, I just didn't want to talk about wine because I think a lot of people talk about.
I'm so sorry, listeners. We had some kind of Wi-Fi issue and we lost the audio, but we are back, and Laurel will continue what she was telling us about. And I'm so sorry about that interruption. Go ahead, Laurel.
Hey, it's technology. You
Yes,
just can't trust it.
you just can't.
Anyway, so with my podcast, I just wanted to talk to people about what goes on with wine behind the scenes because
Mhm.
there's so many stories. Every bottle that you open, every sip of wine you taste has a story attached to it. And to me, that's where the joy is. That's where the fun is. The people who make it, the people who tend the vines, we call them the cellar rats, the people who run around the cellar and look after everything,
Uh-huh.
who clean out the vats, who look after the barrels, who move the pallets, who fill the bottles,
Right.
the winemaker, the assistant winemaker,
Uh-huh.
the people
Uh-huh.
in the tasting room. Everyone has a story, and every single one of those people contribute to that wine you are tasting. And there are so many wonderful stories around the world. I've had the privilege and the pleasure of doing, I think I recorded over 70 episodes now, podcasts. And they're
Wow.
not all released, they're not all released yet.
Uh-huh.
But every single person whom I speak to is so full of happiness. And that's another reason why I love doing this. Because if you're in the wine business, you really, really enjoy it. You don't do it to make money. You do it because you're passionate about it, right?
Exactly,
That's wonderful.
exactly. That's why I got started with all of my wine tastings and all of the classes I've been to and all the trade shows I've gone to. It's just so fun. It's so social. It's so interesting, and it's you can just become so passionate about it because the more you taste different flavors and different wines from all over the world, the more you get so interested in learning about them and the intricacies of winemaking. It's really, really interesting. And it's almost like addictive. It keeps you going. It keeps you guessing. It makes you wonder, well, where did this come from? And what country is this from? And what flavors am I tasting? Am I tasting tobacco? Am I tasting um, tar? Am I tasting a barrel? Am I tasting um, peach am I tasting? What fruit is coming out in my palate? And it's just it all just makes you want to keep coming back for more. It really
Yes, it
does.
does.
It's very addictive. It's very, very addictive. So now, is there a mentor that you have worked with in the past? Somebody that has, gotten you started and thinking, well, maybe you should go for certification, or maybe you should go to Italy, or do some kind of wine tasting in Europe so you can learn a little more. Do you have someone you work with, or are you a one
I've been
woman
really
show?
I'm a one woman show right now.
Ah,
I've been
okay.
really, really lucky along the way. I have met fabulous and fascinating people, both men and women. I mean, I work with someone who has really coached me in terms of the actual podcasting because it is technical. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes. Yes, there's wine behind the scenes, but we can also have a podcast called Podcasting Behind the Scenes, right? There's a lot of work that goes on.
Yeah.
And his name is Paul Copcutt, and he's worked very closely with me over the years. I wouldn't be anywhere close to where I am now without Paul's help and guidance.
Hmm.
In terms of wine itself, I think back to my instructors and professors at college. They were fabulous. I still have relationships with almost all of them. I've kept that up. I mean, I'm not 20 years old, so it's easy to reach out to your professors and really relate to them on a personal level. And after I was finished, of course, and then you know, I was so lucky because as I traveled around the world and I've gone to many wine conferences, I started meeting people who were as fascinated by wine as I was.
Hmm.
And so I've been able to leverage those relationships. And I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just you meet someone and you go, wow, I can't believe that you're doing this, and how can I help you, and what can I learn from it? And well, if you can do that, then maybe I can do this. That's what I mean when I say leverage. It's just not a one-way street. It's like helping each other. And I have met the most fabulous people as I travel around. And they're all, they're in wine, they're in hospitality, they're in tourism,
Hmm.
they're in food. It's just great. It's great
Hmm.
to meet them, and they give me so much inspiration.
Yes, yes. Wine people are very passionate and very fun and very animated and very jovial, and they're just people that you want to get to know, and people that you want to learn from. I remember doing all of my trade shows when I was back in New York City, and I would get invited to all of them. Chile, Spain, Italy, France, and it was just I met such great people. I really did, and I learned so much from them, and I tasted such exquisite wines that are just unforgettable. And I learned so much about wines from Africa and Chile and Spain. I knew a lot about the Italian wines because I've been to Italy 6 times and Sicily. So I've learned about those wines. But from other countries in Europe, it's just so interesting and learning from the people that you just feel such a connection with, because we're all so enthused about the same thing, and it's just like-minded people getting together, which really really inspired me to continue my journey and then to write my book. So yeah, it's just been a lot of fun for me. So now you said you have done 70 podcast shows. When did you get started with Wine Behind the Scenes?
That it was oh geez, it was geez, what? This is 2024, so it's about two
Mhm.
years ago. Actually, almost 2.5 years ago, and I took a long time to figure out how I wanted to do it and really did some groundwork because I think
Yeah.
when you start something like this, it pays off if you spend some time thinking it through.
Mhm.
What do you want to say and what kind of guests do you want? And aside
Mhm.
from the actual technical stuff, which requires some thought too, but it's really more the people side and how you're going to structure your podcast and what you're going to work on in terms of the strategy for your
Right.
for your podcast. So it's been
Exactly.
it's been just over 2 years. I release an episode every 2 weeks.
Uh-huh.
Um, and yes, I think recorded number 70. It hasn't all been they haven't all been released yet. I think I'm coming up to ooh, releasing 60, 61, 62, somewhere in there.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because I
And
batch them. I
uh,
record and then release.
uh-huh. And tell me, how do you find your guests?
Well, when I started out, I remember being really nervous. Like, "Oh, I'm not going to find anyone to
Uh-huh.
talk
Uh-huh.
with, and nobody's going to want to talk to me." Well, that wasn't true.
People love to talk
Not
about themselves. People
well.
love to talk about themselves and their successes and their journeys and their stories. So, absolutely. Yeah.
Most of the people I find, either through my connections here where I live, because there's a lot of wineries here, dozens and dozens and dozens of wineries,
Hmm.
plus the people whom I've met, through my education. I also, because I travel to Europe a lot and I go to conferences, I meet so many people there. I was even at, conferences in the US I go to, and it's all related to wine, and it's just fun to you sit down at a table and you talk to people and you exchange contact information,
Yes.
and the next thing you know, you have a podcast guest because they've got such a fascinating story. I
Hmm.
don't care whether you're a winemaker or you're out dealing with the vines, or you're a soil scientist, or you're oh, I don't know, you're a sommelier, or you're a server, or it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. You have
Yeah.
a if you have a fascinating story, I want you on my podcast.
Sure, absolutely. Everybody that has a story to share, you can learn from. There's always something that you can learn from somebody, no matter what their position is, no matter what their job is, and then that can really just fill you up, and make you want to continue even more and try that different wine and go to that new place and learn about those vines and just continue your journey. So yeah, that's wonderful. So now does your husband travel with you on your wine journeys?
Sometimes he does, sometimes he
Yeah.
doesn't. He can when he does when he can. Sometimes I'm alone, and that's okay. I actually just spent some time in Spain, Spain and Portugal this last spring. It was kind of a busy time for me. I was over in Bulgaria at a
Oh,
conference, a wine
uh-huh,
conference for a couple of, and then I was traveling through Bulgaria with a friend for a couple of weeks. And I
uh-huh.
came back, and then 2.5 weeks later, I was on a plane again over to Portugal, and
Wow.
I'm currently studying for my Spanish wine scholar credentials. So I thought, well, since I'm over here, I might as well go up to the north of Spain and see those areas I have not seen. I've seen, sort of the southern part of Spain and Catalonia, but I have never been to the northern part of Spain. So I rented a car and drove up. I did this by myself. It was really a fascinating journey.
How
Met some
exciting.
fabulous people,
Hmm.
saw amazing things,
Hmm.
and yeah, went along the Bay of Biscay and then down into La Rioja and
Oh,
through
lovely.
Spain back into Portugal. So it was fun.
Lovely. Do you speak Spanish?
No, I don't.
And you were fine traveling.
I was
How
fine. All I can say
fantastic is
is,
that? How fantastic. And you weren't with a tour or anything like that. You just went by yourself and there's a lot of so that's good to know, listeners. If you want to travel by yourself in Spain and you don't know the language, clearly there's a lot of English speaking people that live there, the natives and fellow travelers, I'm assuming.
yes, and you know what? English is spoken in many countries in Europe simply because it is the lingua franca now of business and
Right.
tourism.
Right. I mean, I discovered that when I was in Italy. There was a lot of English speaking people that were
Yeah, and
natives.
even I had no hesitation. And also, there's something called Google Translate. Thank goodness.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. It's fabulous. Yes. Uh-huh. I use it down here a lot. So,
Now, there you
yeah,
go.
it's
And I would
wonderful.
say to anyone, don't hesitate. Go to Spain and Portugal. In my heart is in Portugal. I adore Portugal. I would go there in a heartbeat. I can tear around that country in a little car by myself with people. I don't care. I love that country. The wine
Uh-huh.
is fascinating.
Uh-huh.
The country's beautiful. The people are friendly, and it's a
Yes.
beautiful place to visit.
Yes, I've watched a lot of travel shows with Rick Steves on Spain, and I fell in love with the Andalucia region. So I don't know, have you been to, was that part of your travels, the Andalucia
Just
region? I'm not sure if that's
just
north or south.
Yeah,
On,
just touched it a little bit. I was mostly in La Rioja and the northern part along the Bay of Biscay because I'd never been to that part of Spain.
uh-huh.
And it was just so different. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, you can read in a textbook, right? You can study, but
Hmm.
nothing is like actually being there,
Right. It's not the
seeing
same.
it,
It's not the same.
smelling it, yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
tasting it, feeling it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. There is nothing like the actual experience of going there. I mean, watching the travel shows, reading about them, seeing all the books and the pictures. There is nothing like the experience. I totally agree. And I used to travel so much more before I came to Florida. It was easier to do that because I had a different job when I was in New York than I have down here in Florida. So I had my New York City salary and I was ready to go. And I went to quite a few places. I think I've been to more places in Europe than I have in the United States because um, I was always very, very, very excited about Europe. And I guess being an Italian American, I wanted to learn so much about my own culture and my own homeland. I found it to be so interesting to be in Italy and especially Sicily because I am Sicilian American. So it really hits home, and I felt like I was so at home there. Even though I don't know a single person, none of my ancestors I'm familiar with that live there, I felt like being home. I felt like I was really home. It just felt so familiar to me every time I'm in Italy and Sicily. And whenever I'm on the plane ride home, there's always the tears. There's always the tears that, oh, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave. And I always say I'm going to get back there again. It's been
And
far
you
too
will.
long. It's been far too long. I have to get back to Italy or Sicily, anywhere. I don't care, north to south, east to west. I got to get back there. But I do also want to go to Spain. I've not been to Spain. I would love to go back to Paris. I was only there for 2 days, so I want to spend much more time in Paris, especially since I love French food, French wine, French foreign films, French music. So yeah, that's also on the bucket list.
I mean,
Also,
France is a fascinating country, and I've spent quite a bit of time on the Rhone, in the Rhone Valley, up from the
uh-huh.
Mediterranean and the French Riviera, I guess, going up
Ah,
the Rhone into Lyon.
yeah.
And it's so beautiful.
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
you go off on the small country roads and you go around a hill and you see a little castle on the top of a hill or a little church, and you get the
Yeah.
little villages and you stop at the local farmers market. It's
It's
just
dreamy.
it's
It's
just wonderful.
dreamy. You feel like I felt like when I the last time I was in Sicily, in not Sicily, the last time I was in Italy, I was in Monopoli, which is the Puglia region, and I was teaching English conversation to high school students. And I felt like I was in a Sophia Loren movie. I really did. With the fountain, I was putting my feet in the fountain, waiting for my class to start, and I was like, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm in a Sophia Loren movie." It's just, oh, it's dreamy. It's dreamy. There's no place like it. There really isn't. Wow. Well, thank you for this journey through Europe and Italy and Spain. It's really, oh, it's I've got that warm fuzzy feeling now that I hope stays with me the rest of the day, just talking about European travel.
Well,
So
you know
tell
what?
us, yeah.
All you have to do is pick up a bottle, because I bring a lot of wine home.
Hmm.
And I can look at a bottle of wine and I look at the label and I'm instantly transported back to where I bought that bottle of
Uh-huh.
wine.
Uh-huh.
Um, I can see, I immediately can see where I was. I can see where I was standing. And to me, that's part of the joy of bringing the wine back. Yes, I love to taste it and drink it and all the rest of it, but
Yeah.
it's like, wow, looking at these bottles, it's instant travel for me when I
Uh-huh.
look at a bottle that I brought back.
Right? And instant gratification.
And instant
Instant travel
gratification too.
and instant gratification. So, yeah. So, well, it's been wonderful to have you on the show. So, tell our listeners where they can find you and listen to your podcast and learn more about you.
Well, winebehindthescenes.com, all one word, winebehindthescenes.com. All the podcasts are there. I've got recipes and all kinds of information on that site. I'm also on all the streaming platforms. So you go to Apple, Spotify, you name it, you can find me. Just type in Wine Behind the Scenes, and there I will be.
And there you are.
Facebook and Instagram. at Wine Behind the Scenes. So it's not hard to remember. It's just
Okay.
at Wine Behind the Scenes.
Wonderful. You heard that first, listeners. Wine Behind the Scenes, and you will find all 69 or 70 episodes of Laurel's podcast and learn more about her travels and the intricacies of winemaking and everything else that she wants to share with us. So, in closing, I would like to invite all of you to explore my self published book, Divulge Divino, and I will show that to you here. This is the cover, the front and the back. And on the cover, it features one of my fabulous paintings called Mind's Construction, which is available on my Etsy shop. The book comes in paperback and Kindle version on Amazon.com. It's a wonderful journey of wine and art that you won't want to miss. Additionally, I encourage you to visit my Etsy shop, Art Reflections Design, where you can discover my eclectic, one of a kind abstract paintings for sale. If you're looking for unique home products and accessories, check out my threadless shop, also named Art Reflections Design. There you'll find home products and accessories adorned with my distinctive artwork. Thank you all so much for your support, and stay tuned for my next episode of Divulge Divino. Inspire, innovate, indulge. Art, wine, and entrepreneurial triumph. Bye bye.